So it's day one of my trip, and gonna be on the trail for about 5 days, trying to get into this new area off trail that I haven't been in before. So I need to cut up around this ridge, and I'm gonna head up right under all those spires. I'm finally right up under these spires, and you can see everything's opened up. That's where I came from down there. See Glacier Peak back there, the Monte Cristo Range, North Cascades right up there, just buried in the middle of wilderness. See if this light holds on or not. It looks like it was getting blocked up by the clouds, but I need to head right up through that gap, and I'm hoping to get some shots back in there. It looks like the clouds are nice back there. So I wanted to get through my composition framework with you guys, and I use this framework for every single shot. And out of everything you could learn for photography, it's great to learn camera techniques and settings like that, but after a few months of practicing and getting it ingrained, you're not going to really see much improvement from improving your camera skills. There's only so far you can go with learning which buttons to push, but composition is the actual hard part about landscape photography. And every time I'm out shooting, I'm using this composition workflow, and it's 5 steps. You guys can use it really easily, and it's gonna help you narrow down compositions and ensure you have a really good shot. And I also have a free PDF and guide that lays all this out, so you can go to the link down below the video, and the guide is a PDF form, so you can download it on your phone, and then you can take it out shooting with you, and it covers step by step by step. So watch the video first, then download the PDF and take it out shooting with you. So number one thing, whenever I'm out here looking for compositions, I'm first just scanning the landscape, and I have this algorithm going in my mind, and I'm just saying to myself, heck yeah or no. So a lot of people come out and they just take shots of absolutely everything, and they come back from their trip and there's just 1,000 shots that they have to load into Lightroom, and they look at them, they're like, I'm not gonna look through these to look for the good ones because it's just overwhelming. You don't want to sit down and spend the hours to do it. So a good way to filter out if you actually want to shoot or not is the number one question you ask yourself. Just scan the landscape and say to yourself, heck yeah or no. So just eye in different parts of the landscape that could be a composition. And a good rule of thumb here is if you're not excited to shoot it, if you're not saying to yourself, heck yeah, I really want to shoot that, if you're not excited about editing the shot you're potentially looking at, you're never going to touch it when you get back home. So I don't even take 99% of potential shots. If it's not a heck yeah shot, if I'm not excited, if I'm not pumped about the shot, I'm not even going to shoot it at all. So all you're doing is you're looking all throughout the landscape, and you're going to get better at this over time, and you're looking for different crops just with your eye. You could say, do I want it zoomed in? Do I want it wide? What do I see here that's a heck yeah composition? And if there are none, I just don't shoot at all. But in a day like this where it could be really hit or miss, I might get some side light that pokes in through here as the sun gets lower and just blast all of this haze, especially down in all those layers, and it might turn into a heck yeah composition. I like to look for the main center of attention in the image. So if I'm gonna shoot this image, as you can see back here, it's going to be Glacier Peak. There's nothing else in this image that could be the center of attention. So since I know it's gonna be Glacier Peak, and I know that's gonna be in the background, I need to offset it with something in the foreground. So if I'm shooting Glacier Peak in the background and it's on the back right of the image, say it's back here, well then if I have a foreground that's in the forward left, I can offset it. And all this does is balance across the center line of your photo. And this is a really good way that you can set yourself every time that you're not gonna have an offside or off balance shot. Because what I see with a lot of people is they'll have a shot and they'll have the center of attention in the back right, but then they'll have everything else that's interesting in the bottom right. So if you have anything that's large, such as mountains, anywhere in the image, let's say it's in the back right, offset it with something in the bottom opposite side that shows scale. So in this case, you can see all these trees down here. You can see these layers leading back into Glacier Peak. I want to make sure most of those layers are on the left side here. So then I have balance wherever my eyes start in the image, whether they start in the back right or the bottom left, they're moving across the image. If everything is just on one side of the image, then there's no point of having the other side of the image in the photo. Earlier in the video, the sun was blocked up by these clouds, so I wasn't getting any side light on this scene. So like I'd said in the shooting technique, this wasn't going to be a heck yeah composition for me
unless the light flooded in from the side. So you can see with the light flooding in from the side, it completely changes how the scene looks. And this is just a basic raw file edit. I'll do the Photoshop edits later. But as far as the overall composition goes, after I decided it was worth shooting, if I just divide this up in the middle, I'm going to show you guys a review of this system once more. So the first part of the system is heck yeah or no. Once you decide to shoot, the offset technique is second. So I just placed most of the mountain range in the back right, and just divide this down the half, and you can just visualize this in the field. Don't be too particular about it. These are just rules of thumb that you can use that are really going to help you out. Since I knew this was back here, I needed to balance the bottom left to show scale. So I knew this was an 11,000 foot peak. I wanted to show scale against it. So I have some trees down here in the bottom left, and I'll lighten these up when I do the Photoshop work. So we have greens down here, we have magentas and pinks, and then I can work some complementary colors here. You can see this magenta is directly across from green. And then I also have some oranges right here and some blues. So this is called a square color harmony. You guys can check out my color harmony photography guide. I'll leave a link for all my free PDFs down below this video. So all this does is it draws attention from the bottom across the center of the scene back to the main center of attention. Don't try to overcomplicate it or make it anything more than that. It's just a good way you can make sure your shots always balance pretty well.
Now the third technique I like to use is what I call the Interestingness grid. So this is super easy. Don't overcomplicate any of this stuff. But the Interestingness grid, imagine a horizontal line split up into thirds. So top third line, bottom third line. And then also imagine, oh, I just took the shot by hitting it. Also imagine that you have a third line on the verticals. So third on the left, third on the right. That gives you 9 boxes, and you can just visualize this. You don't need to have those boxes on your screen. Your goal is to fill each of these 9 boxes with something different and interesting. Now, it doesn't have to be like mind-blowingly interesting, but it should be something that adds to the overall scene.
So if I just divide this up at the approximate thirds on the vertical and horizontal, and like I keep saying, don't overcomplicate this. It doesn't matter if they're perfect. Just get it close when you're visualizing it. And then you want to put something interesting and new in each sections of this grid. So if I look here, 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 these are all completely different. If this was the same as this, it would have been boring. But since each of these boxes are filled with something new and interesting, it works well. Same down here. These are all different. I have the trees here and it's completely dark. In this one I have the trees, but it transitions to light as it moves back into the scene. And here it also transitions from light back into the scene. Anything that's semi-boring in the image can be left dark. So when I do edits, I'll probably leave this mostly dark because my eyes know that they're trees. I don't need to bring out all the highlights a whole lot. So if you don't want someone to look at specific parts of the image because they're not as interesting as others, make them dark. Whereas things you want people to look at, keep them light. And then the Interestingness grid through here, this is all different looking too. So if I look at all these 9 boxes, each of them has something new in it. If you don't have that in your shot, number one, it might not be worth taking, or number two, maybe you could crop it down to remove some of the dead space.
And if you guys have ever heard the thirds rule, don't use that. Don't use any of these rules that confine you to specific things, because you're going to hold yourself in your mind into that thing. And oftentimes there's going to be really good compositions that don't follow those rules. So just use rules that give you a lot of leeway with what you can do. You don't want repetition. If everything in the bottom 3 boxes is the same, or the middle 3 boxes, or the back 3 boxes, if they're all the same, the eyes get bored looking across the scene or up and down the scene, and then they just move on to the next photo, especially on the internet. So, Interestingness grid, try to fill each of those boxes. And what you'll often find is a lot of people will shoot really wide crops like this. If you're shooting a wide crop, and you split this up into that Interestingness grid, and you see any parts of the Interestingness grid, any of the boxes that are dead, meaning it's just repeating something that's in the box next to it, then you know you need to crop in further or move out further. So you're just moving your crop in and out to balance that scene until all those 9 boxes in the Interestingness grid are filled. And like I said, you guys can download the free PDF. I'll leave the link below. And then you can follow this when you're out shooting. Because once you do it about 20 times in the field, you'll just memorize it and you'll automatically do it. So that's the third thing. Heck yeah or no, first step. Offset technique, second step. Interestingness grid, third step. The next step is you're looking for color and light. All good landscape photos have both color and light in them. And when I'm talking about color, you want different gradients of color. So you guys can check out my color harmony photography guide, or just color theory. Any colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, like yellow and blue, look good, or cyan and pink. Any of these colors can look great. Those are just called complementary colors. So it's good to find a complementary color that you can offset in your image. And then it's also good to have light. And what I mean by light is there's all different values of tonal ranges, meaning you have darks, you have midtones, you have lights, you have brights. And you can see where all this light's starting to kick through down here. I'm getting some really nice separation in this image. You can imagine if I was shooting this and there was no light poking in from the side, there would be no depth either. So your eyes are just looking at this 2D image and they're perceiving depth or their ability to walk into the scene only because there's different tonal values and different colors. You could imagine if it was pitch black out here, there would be no photo, there'd be no depth, there'd be no color. So you need to have color and light. If there's no color and light in the scene, it's another scenario where you probably just shouldn't shoot it at all. And oftentimes I'll go out for a week-long backpacking trip and I'll come home with 1 or 2 shots that I really, really like.
You can see in this specific shot, if I didn't have color back here and I didn't have light flooding into this landscape, I also wouldn't have the transition from dark to light to dark to light. And as I say when I'm going through this composition system, is also noted in that free guide, the transitions from dark to light are what keep your eyes moving around the scene. If nothing changes as far as the tonal values, it can be a very boring shot. So that's why you need light in the scene. Color is also essential. You can see a lot of these areas that are in the darks aren't going to have as much color, but as you move into the midtones, the light midtones, and the highlights, it's going to have more and more color and saturation. So you never want to saturate dark areas. When light hits things, it saturates them more because you can actually see the underlying color. When light doesn't hit things, such as the darks, they're not going to be saturated. So keep your dark areas less saturated.
That moves on to the next step, which is the last step. For each one of these compositions you're taking, once you get it dialed in, take at least 2, but probably 3 or 4 variations. And by variations, I don't mean a completely new composition. I mean really dialing it in. So take one variation of it right here, and then you might move it slightly up and down, left or right, just a little bit. And what you'll often find is during taking these multiple images, that you're going to have one that you like more than the other ones, and you might not know that out in the field. But once you get home on the big screen computer and you can actually see them, you'll find that you like one a lot more than the others, and you couldn't determine it from this small back of the camera screen.
So if I go into Lightroom here, you can see my raw files, and these are just slightly different variations that I was taking before the light changed. So I took a few of these, just moving the foreground slightly, and these are very small variations. And then I took this next set of shots while the light was changing. I don't really think I like this set of shots that much. There's too much dead space up in the top and down here. If I made the Interestingness grid over this, these would all be repeating and boring, and a lot of this would be repeating and boring. Same with right here. So I decided that wasn't a great shot to keep. But then I kept working on this shot as the light changed, and you can see I'll just take very small variations of this shot. Might change the crops, might change the angle just slightly, but you can see from this entire shoot, I only took 2 separate different compositions. One was this one, and one was this one, which I tried to clean up and make different once the clouds moved in a little bit up here. So you can see this one's slightly better because it has some clouds in the sky that breaks up that Interestingness grid, but I still don't think it's a fantastic overall composition. It's not something I'll edit, but this one I am going to edit. I think I can do some really nice stuff with this in Photoshop and make it an overall good photo.
So I'm going through those steps for every single shot, and if one of them fails, I'm just not taking the shot. And then you don't have all these garbage images you have to sort through. And then when you get home to edit, you can really be excited about the edit, because if it's not a heck yeah shot, you're never going to want to edit it. It's never going to go in your portfolio. So all that gets filtered out, and it's going to be way more exciting to constantly shoot. So after you have that dialed in, then I'm just waiting as the light changes, and I'll actually take these shots as this light drops down over the horizon and changes. You can see it's starting to get pretty good. It's still not a heck yeah for me, but the thing about wilderness photography and landscape photography is the longer you shoot and the longer you're out here, the more jaded you get to good light. Once you've seen some really ridiculous scenes and locations and sunrises and sunsets, you'll be more prone to only shoot really good shots and really good light. But I remember when I first started coming out here, it was just, everything was mind-blowing, and it's hard to determine what's actually going to be a good shot or not. So if you're excited about it, there's a bug. If you're excited about the shot, go ahead and take it. But if you're not excited about it, don't take it. And then everything else just follows my standard camera technique, which you guys have all seen a million times. But if you haven't, you can just check out the videos that I'll link down below. This covers all my camera technique. So I'm going to shoot f11 for this one. I'm just going to focus the approximate hyperfocal here, which is this ridge line. I always like to take these really high contrast ridge lines and then back button focus on them. And then I'll just grab my focal ring and watch the back of the screen. Make sure that focal point's perfect. And you guys can check out my back button focus and my complete focusing video too. So that looks good. Histogram, push that all the way over to the right, exposed to the right. And I have a circular polarizer on, and I've already dialed it in, but for circular polarizers, you just turn them counterclockwise until the colors and the light on the back of the screen are the best they can be. Meaning they're the most saturated, they have the best tonal values, and they look good. And that gives me 1/2.5 second shutter speed. So for this shot, that shutter speed's fine because nothing's moving. I don't need to freeze anything. But if I needed to increase or decrease it, I would just use ISO to do that. You can see, shoot in aperture priority mode, it just automatically changes the shutter speed for me. And now I just put on a 2-second timer and fire it off. But more than anything, just having a way to filter out good and bad images is essential. And if you have a framework to work off of, then you're not getting up to these scenes. And I know what this is like because I used to not have a framework. You see just light popping off in all directions, and there's so much, you have no idea where to start. So you just get overwhelmed, and you get through the shoot and you realize that you're not sure if you actually got the shot. So another good way to really get better shots is just to come out and live in the wilderness for 5 days. I have tons of videos on backpacking and guides too. You guys can read through all my backpacking gear, but it actually puts you out here where you're living in it all the time. And if you're out here more often, you're spending more hours outside, not in a car, not near the trailhead, not in a hotel, your chances are going to go way up for getting better shots. And the other thing you're also going to learn is just how to locate yourself. So earlier in the video, I was down in there, and I told you guys a lot of people would camp at the lake, which is way down in there. Well, you can see that's all dark now. All the light is popping off up here, and I'm gonna hike back up there tomorrow and see what's back up there. But just the adventure of being out here and not knowing what's gonna happen next is gonna pump your adrenaline up. It's gonna make you more excited to shoot. And then you have that filtering mechanism that you can use of, what do I shoot? And over time, you're going to narrow this down, and you'll be able to step up to scenes, and you're going to know if it's heck yeah, and you're going to know exactly how to go through it. So the hardest part about landscape photography is probably the photo editing, I won't lie. Second part is getting compositions and being able to find locations and getting into locations. So learn how to read topo maps, learn how to go backpacking, learn how to put yourself in a constant mental state where it's an adventure. And if you're in that state of mind, the compositions will just come. So I'm gonna fire another one off here as this light changes. Last glimpses of light. I actually think I might have got a heck yeah shot. We'll see once I get home on the computer, but just got my tent set up right under those spires that I was pointing at from the trail earlier. It's always really fun when you can look at something on a topo map and Google Earth back at home and then kind of design the route out. This was mostly off trail to get up here after that small section of the PCT I was on. And then finally getting up here and just seeing what it's like. It's just an awesome adventure. Always gets my adrenaline pumped up. But I am gonna go to bed, get up early tomorrow, see what the sunrise looks like, and then get back on the trail. So thanks for watching, guys. See you tomorrow.